In our news bulletin for this evening, the Secretary-General of the Forum gives a perspective on what the framework for Pacific regionalism means for member countries like Niue. Youth leaders voiced their opinions in the second Youth Parliament session with questions and motions presented to Cabinet. The Niue government strengthens bilateral ties with Australia in talks this week. The Niue government and people commended for their successful hosting of the Pacific Communities Conference last week. Miss Niue returns to the island to prepare for the upcoming Miss Pacific Islands pageant in December. The Rockman Challenge takes competitors through a grueling triathlon program. The recent Pacific Community Conference that Niue hosted last week also saw the arrival of the Secretary-General for the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, Dame Meg Taylor, who was here to enhance the Forum Secretariat's role in Niue. She told the Council of Regional Organizations of the Pacific that it demanded game-changing interventions in support of a new regional politic, saying that if the Forum cannot collectively support the leader's vision, that it needs to rethink what there is to do. The framework for Pacific regionalism calls for a new regional public policy process.
Well, the framework for Pacific regionalism came about after the review of the Pacific Plan. And Sumakera Marauta from Papua New Guinea was asked to lead that review by leaders. And the finding was that policies or decisions are driven, or priorities for the region were driven by officials and not by leaders. So what happens now is that we've taken on board the suggestions of Sumakera to have a much more inclusive process. So anyone in the Pacific can write a letter to us, but it's not so much to the Secretariat, but to the Specialist Subcommittee, which is a group of people that was appointed by leaders that represent Melanesia, Polynesia, Micronesia, Australia, New Zealand, SIS countries, civil society and private sector. So people in the Pacific can write and express their views about what they think should be a regional priority. So a regional priority means that we have to give up our sovereignty and have a common position on many issues. It also means there are issues that haven't been duplicated. So there are a series of tests, but what it means in essence now, and we've implemented it for the first year, is that they go through all the submissions that come in. So last year we got 68. They narrowed it down to 5, took it to the leaders in Papua New Guinea, and the leaders in Papua New Guinea, because the forum was held there, endorsed those 5. And those 5 were climate change, ICT, technology, added value on fisheries for our countries, cervical cancer for women and girls, and human rights issues in West Papua. It's a formidable set of issues, 5 very important issues that go from aspects of technical work to human rights issues and very deep political issues with a neighbour as Indonesia.
Dame Taylor will be in the role for the next 3 years and said that as a regional organisation they need to be open and that there are some things that sub-regionals can do and do them well. There are other things and issues that regional organisations have a responsibility for and should take leadership on to be able to exchange ideas and not to be afraid of it. She is the first woman to have held this position as a Secretary General of the Forum. Youth leaders and representatives from villages in Niue were given the full insight of what life is like in the Legislative Assembly chambers yesterday with the Premier Honourable Toke Talangi and his cabinet ministers. The session may not be of any significance for Niue, but it is a significant initiative for the would-be leaders of tomorrow to have a taste and experience the atmosphere of debating chambers where decisions for the nations are discussed and made. The 4-hour-long session involved maiden speeches, questions and motions that reflected a lot on the youth perspective and their aspirations about life in Niue and how prosperous it will be if they can have or are allowed to have a say. Questions to the House included why expatriates living, working and paying taxes in Niue for more than 10 years are not allowed to gain permanent residence. Another youth put in a motion to reduce the cost of the caterpillar clearing the land for taro crops and that the current police station be used as a youth centre once the police relocate to the new disaster management centre yet to be built at Funukula next to the government building. There were also some words of advice and encouragement from the Premier and his cabinet ministers. Niue government officials have been in bilateral discussions with Australia to strengthen diplomatic relations between both countries. Australia has had close ties with Niue for many years, providing aid and support for many projects implemented on the island. One of the most recent ones is the tripartite arrangement for the building of the new Niue Primary School building that is nearing completion to be opened for use in the new school year. Secretary to Government Richard Hipper explains more about the outcomes from the bilateral discussion.
Niue would like to have a direct bilateral with Australia. That means any funding from Australia for any project programs needs to come directly to Niue. At the moment, this is administered through New Zealand. Australia do not have a presence in Niue like an office, but our discussion was that we believe that, and the government is confident that it can manage its matters affairs with Australia quite competently and confidently. Therefore, this discussion has happened, and Australia will look into that. And this is the beginning anyway. Australia, through the minister who was here last week, announced a $1.4 million program or envelope for Niue. The government will now discuss where the money will be spent on, or what program will the money be spent on, and then we will notify Australia. In addition to that, of course, there is money already directed to the building of the school and also into waste management. So we see Australia a contribution to Niue to our development. The other discussion point that we discussed was like at the moment with New Zealand, we have a 3-year forward aid program under a joint commitment. We also discussed the possibility of Australia in Niue entering into that forward aid program like on a 3-year term. At the moment, that's $1.4 million. Is it possible for the $1.4 million to be like for every year? So we know that by 3 years, we know how much money, 1.4 times 3. So we have that money to budget for and to plan for in our planning and budgeting cycle.
Government hopes that the bilateral discussions with Australia will be held annually. Niue hosted the Pacific Community Conferences last week, and government have had time to reflect on what has been achieved. It took 68 years since the SPC was established before Niue as a member was given a chance to host. According to the Secretary to Government Richard Hipper, despite having hosted a few smaller regional meetings in the past, this is another step up. Niue successfully hosted the Pacific Island Forum Leaders meeting in 2008, but Mr. Hipper noted that there are only 16 members in the forum in comparison to the 28 members represented in the Pacific community. We spoke to the Secretary to Government who led the team on island, who was also responsible for putting through Niue's bid 2 years ago, for his reflections on the meeting.
It was a good meeting. The Premier came back from a very long trip and over a period of time. And whilst he was tired, he was very honored and pleasing to see the Premier at the opening. And also, very special thank you to the Niue Primary School students. And I think they were awesome. They were excellent. And they drew a lot of, when people talk about youth, and that is our youth. The students who play the ukulele, sing harmoniously. And what a blessing in seeing our children like that. So yeah, those are the only things I like to say was to thank you, Niue. for being together to host a very, very successful CRJ and conference.
Secretary to Government Richard Hibbert says that the success of this meeting is a compliment to the many people who worked behind the scenes and were the force or the engine room that kept things going. Although the meeting concluded on Thursday last week, there has been much talk that Niue put in more than 100% effort to make the conference enjoyable.
All of the delegations that came here expressed their very sincere thank you to the people of Niue and the government of Niue. But largely they say it will be impossible to be repeated anywhere. I've been to these meetings and I know how it is. And I'm very, very happy and humbled to express sincere thank you to Niue, to the government and the people of Niue. In every big way, small way, but things just seem to come together. And I think we thank God, for He made it happen. So on the notes, I'm very humbled and respectfully thank you all the families, everybody who contributed.
A letter of thanks from the Director General, Dr. Colin Tuitonga, was presented in Cabinet today, and the Premier Tokitalangi is now the chairman for the conference for the next 2 years. Miss Niue has been officially entered into the lineup of contestants for the pending Miss Pacific Islands competition to be held in Rarotonga, Cook Islands in December. Pageant organizers made the announcement this week that Miss Niue Elaine Faleuke Karena will be up against 8 island beauties vying for the crown. Miss Karena has been on the island for a week, working with the local pageant committee in preparation for the regional pageant.
What I'm planning to do with myself at the moment is to learn as much as I can about the Pacific region, go to the Cook Islands with an open mind, keep my heart really big because this is something we need to be humbled about. I'm really excited to meet the contestants, not only the contestants but also their support crew. And I'm just really excited for the journey that I'm taking because I know I'm going to meet a lot of lovely people and this is a lifetime experience. The theme this year is the spirit of our adventure. So pretty much for me it sums it up as me being a Niuean, taking on a journey and going on an adventure pretty much. Being here in Niue, this is a major adventure for me in my life. So I'm going to take whatever I can from Niue, especially the Niuean culture and heritage, embrace that and keep that within my heart and showcase that on the night of the pageant that who I am is being a Niuean.
Elaine says that this educational journey hasn't been without some small sacrifices along the way.
I left my job to come to Niue so that I could be in touch with my roots. I really wanted to experience being here on the island for a little longer, meet more of the people. Also leaving behind my family that are all the Niueans back in New Zealand. I'm here on their behalf as well. And I'm really honoured to be a Niuean and to come here and sacrifice a lot is giving me more of a blessing to experience this because it's not all the time, it's not every time you can actually get this opportunity to get to travel to your own country where your mum is from. It makes me feel like so much happier being on the island, especially being acknowledged. And also I'm going to try my best to help represent Niue, promote Niue, especially for our young girls. I really want them to succeed in life. And there are many opportunities out there, especially here on the island. And I'm willing to, do some work experience here, also visit the bush. So whoever's keen on wanting to take me up to the bush or do some taro planting and also visiting the caves, take me to your side of the village and show me what you have.
Miss Niue also has a Facebook page where she will be keeping updates of her journey from Niue to the Cook Islands. The pageant in the Cook Islands will be held from the 6th to the 12th of December. A number of enthusiastic cyclists and fitness fanatics arrived on Niue to compete in the annual 4-day Rockman Challenge that started on Monday this week. This year, just over 15 participants travelled from the Cook Islands and New Zealand 4 local tourists and 6 locals participated. But due to final exams now in session, the number of local participants for this year were quite low. The youngest participant was 9-year-old Tom Drinkrow. Day 1 of the Rockman competition started on Monday with the cycling part of the race. The winner for the women's small rock bike race went to Leslie Taylor. For the long rock bike race, that went to Andrea Livingston. And yesterday the rock swim commenced. Lindsay Goff took out first place for the small rock swim and Lydia Eskrig for the long rock swim. Boston Vahetaha won first place for the small rock bike race for the men's with 20 minutes and 12 seconds. For the long rock run men's, that went to Rod Watkins, who took out first place. Men's small rock run once again was won by young master Boston Vahetaha, who placed first with 23 minutes and 13 seconds. For the big rock run, that went to Andre Abakan, and he was victorious with 43 minutes and 29 seconds. Yesterday, Andy Ola won first place for the small rock swim, and Andrew Abakan took first for the long rock swim for the men's category. This morning, the triathlon competition began, and there were two categories. For the small triathlon first category, Jenny George took first place for the ladies, and Simon Drinkrow for the men. Second small triathlon category, Leslie Taylor won first place, and John McGregor was first for the men. For the big triathlon, Andrew Abakan took out first place, and Lydia Eskrig took out first place for the ladies. Overall winners for the Rockman 2015 was Andrew Abakan in first place, Jeff Stoddart second, and Rod Watkins in third. And for the ladies, Jenny George in third, Andrea Livingston second, and Lydia Eskrig taking first place. There were a few slight changes for next year's Rockman 2016, but details have yet to be confirmed according to the events organizer Michael Fuhinu. The prize giving for Rockman 2015 will be held at the Crazy Unga Cafe at 6 this evening. And that concludes our news bulletin for this evening. We do hope that you can join us again for our next news bulletin next week on Tuesday, but do have an enjoyable weekend ahead.